cold front coming across Lake Superior, and you can see these lake effect snow bands that have set up there. Pretty blustery conditions there with winds gusting over 40-45 miles in some of these areas, so travel there a little rough. That's not going to last too long across that area. It's going to be very localized as well. There's the two components. So up around Chicago through the Great Lakes, that's the cold front that's coming through now, the lake effect snow behind that. And there's that big mass of moisture coming out of Florida right now that is going to work its way up the coast. Meteorologists will look at this, and I'll tell you what, if the trough was a little deeper on the East Coast, this could have brought together all the makings for a big early season Northeast Coast snowstorm. But take a look what happens here. That cold air is coming down across the Great Lakes and upstate New York. It doesn't quite match up with the rainfall here coming along the coast. So New York and Boston, the bad news, yeah, you go into a little rain overnight and through the first half of the day tomorrow. The good news, it's rain. It's not snow. And therefore, you don't have to worry about major land travel problems here. This moves out very quickly, so by later in the afternoon, conditions improve across these areas. My big concern, Alex, we've been talking about this, low ceilings, maybe a little bit of wind in places like New York and Boston throughout the day tomorrow. I think we'll have some air travel problems there. But for a snow point of view, just southwest of Buffalo there along the I-90 corridor, in fact, probably inland from the thruway in the higher elevations of the Chautauqua Ridge and the Tug Hill Plateau east of Lake Ontario, about the only places are going to see snow. New York, a little early morning rainfall, nice and mild, temperatures around 50 degrees. Boston through at least early afternoon, temperatures again 40s to near 50, and even up as far north as Portland, Maine, again on the coast. But this time of the year, you could be seeing snow. And in this event here, it'll be rain, a few hours out of the way. Thanksgiving Day looking good.
All right, I like that forecast.
Yeah.
So even if your flight gets a little delayed, we should be able to get things up and going. This isn't a multi-day huge impact event.
That, again, is a little silver lining in this cloud for tomorrow.
All right, we'll take it, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, here's what's still on tap tonight. Slippery when wet, over under, and T-Day nightmares. First up, slippery when wet, a great example of what you don't want to see on the roads this week. Plus, over under, we're going to test your knowledge and ours with a quiz on where the most snow has ever fallen on Thanksgiving. And Turkey Day nightmares. Anyone have an experience worse than this, guys? Well, we're going to tell you. You've been sharing them with us on Twitter as Weather Underground continues. And by the way, if you have one, send it our way. Use the hashtag WUTV. New York City, chance of rain into tomorrow morning. So watch for delays at those airports. And as we know, New York, a big airport that could have repercussions down the line. We know a lot of people will be enjoying a snow-covered Thanksgiving in the northern plains. You're looking at the snow that fell today in the small northern Minnesota town of Ely. Looking beautiful, though. You've got those flakes falling. Definitely puts you in the holiday spirit. And if you're one of those folks who wants to wait till closer to Thanksgiving to put up your other decorations, well, guess what? With weather like that, you can get the Christmas tree out, no problem. Nobody's going to even think. Now, if you are in parts of the Midwest or northern plains and you're looking to get out there on the roads, tomorrow looks great. A lot of those highways are going to be totally dry, and we expect things to be just fine at the airports. Thursday, more of the same. A lot of green on that map, so no delays expected from Minneapolis to Detroit, down towards Cincinnati and over towards Kansas City and St. Louis. Now, on Friday, we do think we'll see delays come into play around the Chicago airports, but especially around, say, Minnesota, Minneapolis area. We've got rain showers in the cards for you as we finish off the week. All right, we've got to talk about some serious heat coming. In fact, we are calling it Thanksgiving roast. And it's not what's happening in your oven, it's what's happening outside. Temperatures across parts of the West are going to be downright hot. Over 88 million people will see highs above average, and plenty of locations will be flirting with records, if not setting new ones for the Thanksgiving holiday. So let's take a peek. Obviously, we're expecting some of the highest heat through parts of, say, the Dakotas and Montana, but we've also got some serious heat records expected across parts of the Southwest. Yuma, we think you're going to be close. Los Angeles, we think you're going to easily break the record. 93, the expected high in Los Angeles. The current record, 89 degrees. Here's your Thursday expected records, including Pocatello, where we've got 63 in the forecast. The record is 58. In Goodland, Kansas, you'll be close to your record. In Phoenix, we think you'll tie it. And of course, that would be an awfully hot Thanksgiving for you. We look at the Phoenix forecast, again, staying in those mid and upper 80s, even into your Friday and through the upcoming weekend. So even as you're digging into those leftovers, it's going to be downright balmy. No, it's going to be hot. Hot stats for you. Phoenix's hottest Thanksgiving was 87 degrees back in 2014. So right now the forecast has us tying that. Hottest Thanksgiving temperature on record was 97 degrees in Falcon Lake, Texas. Whew, and the hottest Thanksgiving on record for the continent was back in 1998. But we've got to talk to Tom Nizzle because we've got to get the flip side. I can't even imagine eating gravy-covered everything with a high temperature in the upper 90s.
Well, and can you imagine eating gravy when it's frozen? Because if you take a look at a place like Browning, Montana, way back in 1896 now, right? 39 below zero on Thanksgiving Day. I cannot imagine what it must have been like then. Take a look at some other stats here. The coldest Thanksgiving nationally on record was back in 1898, but there weren't a lot of recording stations then. So in modern records, it was actually 1993. And take a look at this, Mount Pleasant, Florida. Now they're right on the border, but Florida, Thanksgiving snow, they got a half-inch of snow way back in 1912. So really interesting cold weather stats we can see as well. And as we go into the Thanksgiving weekend here, we're going to get a couple of bouts of cold air. We talked about Thursday, Thanksgiving Day itself, going to be relatively cold in the Northeast here. As we get into Friday and Saturday, conditions are going to warm up a bit across this area, but right back into Sunday and Monday, conditions are going to get very cold again. So it's going to be a temperature roller coaster across a place like Boston with that 30. But today, the coldest record in the U.S., it was way up in Alaska, but Chicken, Alaska.
That's right.
47 below zero. I heard it was so cold the chickens, instead of laying eggs, were laying hockey pucks.
Whew.
It was terrible.
And they're also not going to let the turkeys take all the attention this week. The chickens are saying, hey, we're over here.
That's it. A great place. They always typically have some of the coldest temperatures in the entire U.S., and that includes Alaska. So we could see those kind of temperatures. We're not going to see them, certainly, in continental U.S. for this Thanksgiving weekend.
All right, so there's some good news for us. So coming up on Weather Underground, almost time for another round of Over-Under. You know the highest Thanksgiving Day snowfalls on record. It's me versus Tom when we come back. And join in on the conversation. Send us your questions and your Thanksgiving stories. Hashtag WUTV. Snow, sleet, or hail. What is it? It's graupel. Folks in Denver woke up to it. If you've never heard of graupel, it's small pellets of ice created when supercooled water droplets actually coat a snowflake. A really cool phenomenon, and hopefully you didn't miss Tom Nizzle's explanation last hour. What do you say we take a peek at the West, including the Denver area, and look at your Thanksgiving forecast? I've got my lucky over-under paddle, by the way, because we're about to get in on a new game. Thanksgiving travel looking good for most locations. Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Albuquerque all in the green. And in this case, you want to see green on the map because it means good airport conditions. We don't expect delays. Now, this green you see up into the Pacific Northwest, that's the rain, and so, alas, red on the map for the Seattle airport. SeaTac, we're expecting delays both tomorrow and Thursday because of the rain and also that wintry mix you see up in the Cascades. That could cause you some trouble driving. Even into Friday, still expecting at least some delays around Seattle. San Francisco to LAX and San Diego, all good. Phoenix and Albuquerque also looking good, and Denver will be quiet along with Salt Lake City. So conditions for most of the western airports and most of the roadways do look good. Your San Francisco forecast looks like this. Tuesday evening, the worst travel day. So we're in it. 4 to 7 p.m., the worst time to be out there on the road. So be careful as you head out this evening if you will be heading out. And those trouble routes are I-80 East and US 101 South. And here, it's lake effect snow coming down in Constableville, New York. This just one of the areas across upstate New York that got in on some of that lake effect snow during the day yesterday. We could be looking at more snow ahead. Some areas saw several inches. It was warmer today, drier, so some of that snow has melted. But as I mentioned, still some rain and snow possible tonight and into Wednesday. So not out of the question for some of those areas to see a white Thanksgiving. All right, so time now for Over Under. Our usual host, Mike Bettis, is off. So we've got hosting and also playing duties, Tom Nizzle. So it's me versus Tom. What we are going with is an over-under of 6 inches. All right, Tom?
Wow, okay. All right.
So we've got this. All right, so our first city, have they ever seen, or do you think their biggest Thanksgiving snowfall is over or under 6 inches? It is Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to go under on this one. I like how I just told you what I'm doing. Ooh, all right off the bat. One of us can only be right. Yay, and I'm right. All right.
I think she's going to skunk me on this one.
No, for some reason, I'm on a roll.
You
so
are.
I said I'm either going to crash and burn epically or I'm going to keep the pace going. So let's see. All right, our next city is Rapid City, South Dakota. I'm going to go over with this one. I'm sorry, why do I keep telling you? All right, we're both over, and the answer is, we stink. 2.6 inches. Wow, I'm actually surprised by that. I would have thought Rapid City would be a good one.
Winter weather experts not having a good run.
No, we're not doing well tonight. Portland, Maine. You know, you just mentioned that Portland 'tis the season for seeing some of those snow events. Over or under 6 inches? I'm gonna go under. It's hard. It's hard. All right. The answer is yes!
Got one.
All right, so we're doing all right. Catherine's really challenging us today.
Yeah,
I feel like
she's
this is like the
doing great
hardest
with
SAT section.
Yeah.
She said she had to do a lot of research to mess with us tonight. Let's get to the next one. This next city is Denver. Over or under 6 inches?
Boy, those other seasons.
All right, we both say over, and we're both right.
All right, you got me, though.
Is that it? That's the last one? No. There's
two more.
Two more. So there's still time for redemption, Tom.
Here we go.
Over or under 6 inches for Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
All right, I say over, you say under. Let's do it. Oh, so now we're tied. See, I told you.
We're tied. Let's stop it now, Alex.
Yeah, okay. We both win. Yay! Catherine's like, not so fast.
Okay.
I did all this research. You're going to play Des Moines. Ooh, Des Moines.
No, I want to go.
All right, one of us can only be the winner, and it's Tom Nizzle!
Oh, Alex.
Now, I thought with Rapid City, I was staying in the zone.
You were, but you did fantastic.
I did my best. Thank you. Thank you for...
Here we go. We did
nailed
great.
I'm so proud. No, actually, there's no better person to lose to, I'll tell you, everyone, than Tom Nizzle. Hey, Thanksgiving chances for a white Thanksgiving. Obviously, the higher, the farther north you go. Over the next 7 days, though, we're not really seeing any white Thanksgiving, Tom.
Not much.
Not this year. Nobody's over 6. Ooh, no, not going well. And then kind of the icing on the cake. Oh, cars tumbling off the top of this one. New video tonight. This just goes to show you how quickly a vehicle is able to lose control when the road is slippery. The driver overcorrects, only to head off the opposite side of the road, losing 3 out of the 4 cars loaded into the trailer. Luckily, nobody was hurt. And unfortunately, that car couldn't autocorrect itself. Good reminder to take it extra slow when those roads are slick. Thanks so much for staying with us here on Weather Underground. I'm Alex Wilson. Mike Bettis has the evening off, and we are on the eve of one of the busiest travel days of the year. So maybe you're headed out of town and you've got us on tonight while you're packing. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget those stretchy pants. You're going to be happy you have them. From coast to coast, we've got you covered. Travel from San Francisco to Denver, New York City to Chicago. Many of these locations travel forecasts headed your way. What do you say we take a peek at tomorrow's forecast? It is going to be the Northeast and the Pacific Northwest that have the problems. Everywhere in between looks great. So whether you're on the road or in the air, I think you're going to see easy travels. The exceptions, of course, the corners of the country. Tomorrow, and especially early in the day, we're watching rain across the Northeast corridor. So especially New York City through Boston, delays likely at the airports early, and those could cause some problems even into the afternoon. By Thursday, all green on the map. That means very little in the way of delays expected. Smooth travels both on the road and in the air. Even Friday for your shopping, going to be easy peasy out there on the roads. Just obviously watch for all the congestion around the malls. Philadelphia, we've got your Thanksgiving Day parade, 8:30 in the morning on Thursday. Temperatures, they're going to be cool and crisp, starting in the low to mid 30s, but warming to the low 40s by lunchtime. I want to take you now to the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Right now in the upper 40s, partly cloudy skies overhead, and you're going to actually be wearing less in the way of clothing. You know, you expect this time of year to add layers, but you're back to t-shirts and shorts because temps tomorrow in the 60s, Thanksgiving in the 70s. It's going to be warming up, and a lot of the West will be feeling that warmth. Maybe you're heading out west, and if you're dreading going to the airport this week, imagine what it's like to work there. NBC's Tom Costello went behind the scenes at the nation's largest airport in Denver to see what it takes to get you to Grandma's house this Thanksgiving, hopefully with all your luggage in tow.
At the biggest airport in the country,
Customer service for Bravo 31 aircraft is on the ground, Las Vegas turning to LaGuardia.
size is everything.
Bravo 22 should be there about 5 minutes.
At 53 square miles, Denver International Airport is twice the size of Manhattan. 1,550 flights, 159,000 passengers each day. NBC News went behind the scenes at DIA and United Airlines.
Southwest 465, enter 5 Echo on the ramp.
From inside the ramp tower where they choreograph this daily ballet to the belly of the airport where 57,000 bags a day are sorted for an 8-minute ride to the belly of a 787 headed for Japan. To United's maintenance hangar for a windshield repair. It'll be back in the air for tomorrow's flight. Frontier, Southwest, and United all have hubs here.
B-15 is going to be your gate.
Now, through the end of the year, it's all hands on deck for the holiday travel crush. If you miss a flight over the holidays, you may not make the next one, right?
That's correct. Loads are full. The airplanes are full throughout the United States.
From crystal blue skies to fog, snow, and ice, Colorado weather can turn fast.
406, I copy positive de-ice. Emmy's departure 3-4 left or right.
And on an ice-cold ramp, the race to de-ice. From start to finish, it takes about 16 minutes to de-ice a plane, and once that's done, they want the plane off the ground and in the air within about 10 minutes.
At this time, I'd like to welcome aboard group number 2. Anyone in group number 2?
It's not just the weather here that can affect on-time departures and arrivals.
Sometimes there can be a storm on the East Coast, and there'll be major ramifications for us.
And you're 1,000, 2,000 miles away.
Yeah, exactly.
The DIA footprint is so big, Denver has 5 airport fire stations to meet strict FAA response times.
We need to be to the midpoint of the runway within 3 minutes.
Meanwhile, the TSA promises it's staffed up nationwide to avoid repeats of those hours-long security lines that ruined past holidays. And with bad behavior so quickly going viral, the message this Thanksgiving:
if things don't quite go well, remain calm, be patient.
Stay calm and carry on.
And be nice. be nice to each other. It's the holidays, right? We're all trying to get to the same place. Everybody working hard to get you there on time, too.
They are. That's it. A lot of people working holidays. So,
Yeah.
and you know, they're going to have to work. A little concerned about the airports in the Northeast. We'll take a look at that in a second for tomorrow. But right now, lake effect snow with the cold air coming off of Lake Superior. Winds gusting over 40 miles an hour there. A little travel problem along the UP tonight. But there is a cold front running across Chicago right now. You can see that. That's the cold air, the moisture coming out of Florida. Fortunately, these two systems are not going to meet as they work their way up the east coast of the U.S. So we play it out here. You can see that snow shower activity coming across upstate New York. Going to get an inch or two of snow south of Buffalo, east of Lake Ontario. The rain comes into New York City and Boston early to mid-morning. It will last through early to mid-afternoon, and then it moves off the coast very rapidly. So, you know, Alex, from a travel standpoint on the road, car traffic, there are going to be a few problems because we always see highways. The main issue, I think, is going to be the air travel. Now, take a look at the snow. Again, maybe an inch and a half of snow in these areas. But for air travel, I'm really concerned. You see, the rain is going to be in here early morning. I looked at the aviation forecast, ceilings of 1,500 feet. That's going to cause some problems. After the rain goes through into the early afternoon, winds are going to be gusting out of the northwest to 25 to 30 miles an hour. That may also cause a few delays. So we're going to have to be concerned about that tomorrow if you're traveling. Air travel into the New York hubs and also into Logan as well, because you can see in Boston here, you're going to have rain through mid-afternoon and then a little wind after that. Once that's out of the way, as we get into Thanksgiving Day, things open up. It's going to be really good for travel, but this is going to be my main concern here.
Yeah, and you mentioned, you know, starting with the rain early in the day. That means if we get some early flights delayed,
boom. Domino
exactly,
effect,
it falls all down the line. All right, thanks, Tom. The good news is at least Thursday and Friday look much better. So some good news there. Well, a sight you don't see every day, and some more good news. The lines to get through security at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport are clear. Mr. Mike Seidel shot this video early today. He called it the calm before the storm. Of course, they are getting ready. They're saying, all right, Tuesday's kind of the practice for Wednesday because they know they are going to have a ton of passengers headed to the airport tomorrow. Atlanta sees an awful lot of departures, arrivals, and then people just stopping by for a few hours as they connect to another location. We'll get you to your Thanksgiving Day forecast. Parts of South Florida up against some showers. We could see delays at Miami, Orlando, Tampa area airports, but things are much better for New York. Chicago looks good. Dallas and Denver, A-OK. Hot in Phoenix, 87 your high there. That could tie the hottest Thanksgiving temperature on record for the city. And in Seattle, we do anticipate more delays at the airport there, as well as Portland, Oregon, with more rain and wind in the forecast. Your Cincinnati western and southern race forecast looks like this. Cold one. It's going to be tough to breathe in that cold air. 9 a.m. the start time. This is a 10K, and temperatures are going to be in the low to mid 30s through much of the race. By late morning and lunchtime, we're closing in on 40 degrees. But again, very, very cold for the runners at this one with winds around 5 to 10 miles an hour. New Orleans, we've got the Athletic Club Turkey Day race starting at 8:30. This is a 5-mile race, and you've got temperatures that are going to be much more comfortable for running. Upper 40s, low 50s at the start, with those temperatures warming into the mid 50s by late morning. I want to talk a little bit more about Florida and what's headed your way, because we are up against some soggy times ahead, and that's why I said I think Tampa, Orlando, Miami airports, you guys could be looking at delays for those flights throughout the week. I think less of a chance tomorrow, more of an opportunity into Thanksgiving. So if you're actually traveling on the holiday, this is what you'll be up against. There's your forecast. Future radar showing the rain that's out there now. That continues to lift to the north and east. So moving through coastal sections of the Carolinas. But we go into tomorrow afternoon, we'll see scattered rain showers, some rumbles of thunder, particularly through the northern part of the state. Everybody in Florida pretty much has a chance on Thursday, and Thursday would be the day that we also watch places like West Palm Beach, Tampa and Orlando, Naples and Miami. Rainfall still to come for most locations. An inch or less is what we're up against. 1 to 2 inches, though, up into north parts of the Sunshine State. And year to date, we have been running soggy across Florida. In fact, for the year, we are at #1 for rainfall in Pensacola, in Gainesville, in Naples, and Miami. Look at that, almost 90 inches of rain this year so far in Pensacola, with more, of course, on the way. So have that rain gear ready to go if you're going to camp out for some of the great deals on Friday morning. Well, this holiday season, we are going to bring you a different kind of forecast. It's a hopeful one. When we come back, we're going to take you to one hard-hit Texas town that was in overdrive for weeks after Hurricane Harvey. how the town is coming together to give back to its volunteer fire department. The story is next. And remember, you can interact with us live here on the show. Send us your best weather photos, videos, any questions you have. And tonight, of course, we want to know your worst Thanksgiving cooking nightmare. Send it our way. Use the hashtag WUTV. We're going to be talking about them coming up. Well, the town of Friendswood, Texas, lived up to its name during Hurricane Harvey. Neighbor helping neighbor is nothing new in this town, where most of the firefighters are volunteers. Meteorologist Chris Warren has more in this Forecasting Hope report.
Water rescues, rescue calls in general, EMS calls that were just nonstop for days and days and days.
As Hurricane Harvey settled over Texas, the water and the danger quickly rose in the town of Friendswood.
Literally 1/3 of this city took water, and we did over 2,800 rescues.
The town's fire department, manned mainly by volunteers, worked around the clock.
And I know that these people need help, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to help them. We made sure that our families were safe. We went and got them and went right back to work.
The response during Harvey was a citywide effort.
You might be evacuated in a boat, taken to an area where you were staged and somebody was there to assist you, and then picked up in a dump truck and taken to either one of 2 schools or a church that had opened up as an evacuation center.
Churches like Mary Queen Catholic that opened up a food pantry in the days after Harvey.
I put the word out that I needed help. We had about 80 people show up. Donations just kept coming in and kept coming in, and we were open for 14 days.
And the donations haven't stopped. Today, the church is still helping Harvey victims with everything from Thanksgiving meals to temporary housing.
The way that people have helped in big and small ways has been so heartwarming.
Now those that have helped so much are getting something in return. True Value Hardware presenting a $5,000 gift card to the Friendswood Volunteer Fire Department.
We had 13 members that lost everything they had, and they stayed out there and continued to work to help with other people. And we've been trying to support them as much as we can, and this will go right back to what they need.
We really proved our namesake of Friendswood. We're a Quaker community that was founded back in the late 1800s, and I think we've lived up to the name.
Well, we want you to join the Weather Channel in forecasting hope this week. It's our opportunity to give back to the communities that are still recovering from historic weather in places like Florida and Puerto Rico. You can help contribute to the disaster relief because starting on Thanksgiving Day, we're going to auction off some of our personal items. Official storm-tested Weather Channel jackets, boots, hats, so much more. So we want you to visit weloveweather.tv/auction. That's where you can find out what you can get and also what you can give by bidding, because all proceeds will go to continuing disaster relief efforts. Also, we want you to stay with us throughout this week because we're going to continue to bring you the stories of neighborhoods on that long road to recovery and how these communities are forecasting hope.
I'm donating my rain boots that I wore through several hurricanes and flood events. These boots, they went through things like Hurricane Matthew, they went through Harvey, they went through several different storms.
Flooding will be the #1 concern, and
when you go through these storms, it's the aftermath that is so jaw-dropping. It's surreal. People get a huge influx of help and supplies and monies right after a storm. It always seems to be the case, but that only lasts for so long. And there's been times where we've gone back, year after year after year, and it takes a long time to recover from some of these major storms for a lot of these people.
I want to take you now to Dallas, courtesy of EarthCam. Looking good, Big D, and also balmy, 67 degrees right now. We've got mild temperatures staying in the forecast and very quiet conditions across the central U.S., so travel will not be an issue in this part of the country. In fact, we're seeing all green, no rain, but good news at the airports. Kansas City, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Houston, Albuquerque up to Denver. Not expecting any delays due to weather. And the good news also is the roads will be dry and pretty clear. Now, I can't say the same about how much traffic will be on them, but weather-wise, we're really helping you out with good travel conditions across this part of the U.S. We get you into Thursday, more of the same. So it is going to be a good day if after you eat that big dinner, you want to go out in the yard and let the kids run around, maybe set up a family game of flag football. Perfect for that. And shopping plans also looking good, whether you're camping out or just making it a leisurely trip to the mall. I always like to go at like 10 or 11 in the morning. By that time, everybody who was up late and, they're really crazy for the deals, they're home. But you still get some really good deals. So a great shopping day on Friday as well. Or if you're headed back early, you're not going to see any travel troubles then as well. Well, no matter where you are heading for Thanksgiving Day, one thing is for sure. The folks at Butterball's Turkey Hotline, they're in high gear on the way. The top question that they're asked each and every Thanksgiving.
Almost 8-pound turkey.
How do I cook this? That's my guess. We're taking you to Chicago right now, 34 degrees. Good evening to you. Looking good into tomorrow.
Drumstick, you are hereby pardoned.
Hooray for Drumstick! The president made his first official turkey pardoning for Thanksgiving. Along with Drumstick, President Trump also pardoned Wishbone, the turkey, in a ceremony in the Rose Garden. These turkeys, I should mention, will live out their lives at Virginia Tech's Gobbler's Rest Enclosure. And that's where last year's pardoned turkeys, Tater and Tot, reside. Great names. How do you get to be the namer of the Thanksgiving turkey? Because I would love to be on board with that. Let's get you to your Thanksgiving travel forecast. We take a peek at the South Central, out into parts of the West, and it's really going to be great. Easy travel on the roads and in the air. Now, of course, travel could be impacted by the amount of people out there on the roads, but the good news is that weather's not going to be throwing in any issues. Your Saturday forecast looks like this. So you're getting back home. Maybe you're leaving grandma's house or everybody's leaving your house and you're going to clean up. Nice weather for anything you've got in the forecast, or you've got in your forecast. Really anywhere across the country. We get you to the Pacific Northwest, though. That's where we could still see delays. I think SeaTac, Portland's airport, these are the places that will see persistent delays through the week. Just a few spotty showers up into parts of northern New York and New England. Atlanta's good. Dallas is good. You notice the heat is what's going to be sticking around, though. 86 for Phoenix on Saturday after what will likely be a Thanksgiving Day spent in the upper 80s. It's very hard to get in the mood for all those carbs when the highs are in the upper 80s. That's bikini weather, and by no means are you rocking a bikini bod on Thanksgiving. Well, for some cooks prepping Thanksgiving dinner, it's already started. Why? Well, it has to do with the answer to the most asked question of the experts at Butterball's Turkey Hotline. NBC's Sarah Doloff explains.
Butterball Turkey Hotline, can I help you? For 27 years, Alex Coffey has been talking turkey.
Well, the number one question since I've been...
The closer it gets to the holidays, the more frequently the phones at the Butterball Turkey Talk line light up.
An almost 8-pound turkey does take a lot of time to thaw.
And you want to make sure that you put it on a flat rack so that it's elevated a little bit off the bottom of that pan so air can circulate.
Back in 1981, a handful of home economics experts started working the phones, answering about 11,000 calls that year. Well, fast forward to 2017.
This year we'll take, just for the season we're open, about 100,000 calls. And then you can also, text us. We're on social media, email, chat, so we'll reach millions of consumers just that way.
Roast, smoke, even if the plan is to fry a bird. 50-plus experts are standing by November through December.
It's very rewarding to help people who are having turkey trauma.
To make sure every turkey goes smoothly from the store to the kitchen to the Thanksgiving table. In Naperville, Illinois, Sarah Doloff, NBC News.
I kind of would also love to hear their funniest or most memorable calls coming in, because I am sure on Thanksgiving Day they get some frantic people or some hilarious stories.
Yeah, they've got to write a book, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're talking turkey.
Turkey trauma only in America. I love it.
I know, right? I can only imagine the calls they get. Okay, so we asked you, our viewers, to share some of your Thanksgiving cooking nightmares. We wanted the details from you. 69% of you said, I've never had one, and good for you. There's still time, though. Don't want to put that out in the universe, but the best way to ensure that you're going to get a turkey nightmare is to say, no, everything's always gone great for my Thanksgiving. 31% of you, though, have said, yes, we've had trouble. Scott says, I dumped an entire meatloaf in the sink while trying to drain the grease from the pan.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah. I've done similar.
That was just slow-mo.
Pork chops. Yeah.
Sal says, years ago, my mom, aunt, and grandma had an argument about the placement of cups on the table. They were so upset with each other, the turkey was not cooked.
Holidays and relatives. Oftentimes they just don't go
right, and
well.
Usually they say don't talk religion or politics, but now here you can't even talk about the placement of glassware.
This is really getting
tough
serious.
Go. S. Flinton Nordland says, I had confused cream of tartar, which is sweet, for cornstarch, a thickening agent in the Thanksgiving gravy.
That's chemistry. That's getting way over my head.
Yeah, no, I have no idea what any of those things mean,
No.
But when you say you confuse sweet for thickening, that's not going to be good. Now it sounds like it's runny and sweet. Mark tried to deep fry a turkey in 24-degree windy weather. We could stop there, but he said oil wouldn't stay hot. Turkey never got done. Janet baked a pumpkin pecan cheesecake, then an apple pie. Oven caught fire, caramelized the top of the apple pie, and she finished it in a toaster oven.
But she was able to save it. I mean, think
that's
about
commitment.
that.
I'm actually, hats off to you, girl.
She came through with it. That's
you
fantastic.
made it happen.
We got to do one more here.
Kathy dropped dinner as it came out of the oven, leaving broken glass in the food. And Mina said she was hosting. It was a butterball turkey. She used a cooking bag, and you shouldn't use those with butterball turkeys. It melted onto the skin.
You know, I don't feel so bad now after all this.
No matter what I do, it's only going to be just as bad as these, I like to think.
There's some bad, there's some tough ones in there.
To which the universe just said, challenge, girl. Let's see what we can do.
So my solution to all that is what I do, which is go out and I buy turkey breasts, slice it up, nothing to worry about.
Make it happen. I invite myself to someone else's house. We're so
better.
smart. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.
We have uncovered a remarkable planet, a world of extreme weather, alien landscapes, and bizarre phenomena. It's the most complex system we know of in the universe. That planet is Earth, and we are only beginning to unlock its secrets.
You're walking along, and there on your horizon, suddenly there are 3 suns? What would you make of that?
What forces can put 3 suns in the sky? Or set fire to the night? Or create a tentacled monster above a thunderstorm? You are about to witness the most amazing 24 hours on Earth. As cities float in the air. As the sun flashes green. As wind from space collides with the power of the planet's core, and we solve the mysteries of Earth's strange skies. On planet Earth, some of the strangest secrets are hidden in a very familiar place. The sky.
The sky is the interaction of light from the sun 93 million miles away. It's clouds interacting with water and air. It's everything that we see above the horizon. The sky begins at your feet. We live in the sky.
In 24 hours, a single turn of the planet, you can witness some of the strangest sights in the universe, if you know where to find them. We start the clock just as night falls, in the middle of a thunderstorm over North America's Great Plains. The lightning is bright, but it's a common occurrence, striking somewhere on Earth 50 times a second. The real mystery is what happens above the storm. Weird apparitions that for generations were dismissed as unreal. Fiji, 1950. An airline pilot is startled by a mysterious red flash above a storm cloud. He describes a burst of light like a firework display, spreading out like a water fountain. Despite the pilot's rock-solid reputation, few believe his report.
A pilot is a pilot. He operates the aircraft. They're not up there observing science. They're not up there observing the atmosphere.
For decades, mountaineers, balloonists, and pilots had made similar reports of strange lights in the skies, with the same results.
Scientists probably just discounted it. They just didn't find it scientifically important enough to actually commit research to it.
The sky flashes were the stuff of rumor until July 6, 1989, during a ferocious storm over northern Minnesota, when a new, highly sensitive camera happened to be aimed above the clouds.
Some scientists discovered the first photographic evidence of what pilots had been observing for decades.
A glowing creature in the sky, like a jellyfish 6 times the size of Mount Everest, that appears and vanishes in the blink of an eye. The photograph spurred a worldwide hunt for more of these creatures of the upper air. More were found. Some looked like carrots, some like angels, but they were all red and up to 35 miles tall, and they all lasted less than a second. Scientists named the flashes sprites, after the legendary fairies that appear and disappear without warning. Their briefness had made them hard to see and easy to brand as mere illusions. But it became clear that what was once thought of as empty sky was a realm of secret monsters brought to life by lightning.
A sprite is an electrical discharge in the atmosphere during very vigorous lightning storms, but they're not like a lightning bolt.
A regular lightning bolt flashes below the cloud. Sprites form 20 cloud. A searingly hot lightning bolt is white. A sprite is red. But the red sprite shares a surprising secret with traditional lightning. The hottest naturally occurring thing on Earth is formed in one of the planet's coldest places, inside a thundercloud, where it's as freezing as the Arctic, and water becomes crystal.
The ice is the secret of lightning.
Ice crystals that are hitting each other in a cloud become charged. The positively charged crystals tend to be lighter, so they're taken up with updrafts, and the negatively charged, heavier parts tend to be near the bottom of the cloud. So typically, the bottom of a cloud is negatively charged, the ground below is positively charged.
An energy path is opened, and ice makes fire.
Inside a thunderstorm, the temperatures are below freezing, but you have a spark that can be more than 5 times the temperature of the surface of the sun.
But how does the force that makes lightning also create sprites? By turning a negative into a positive. Normally, positive charges gather on the top of a thundercloud and negative charges at the bottom. So most lightning bolts have a negative charge. But 1 time in 10, a positive bolt creates a negative electric field above the cloud. So the charge goes up, energizing nitrogen in the upper atmosphere, creating a red glow. But over 30 miles up, the air is too thin for the charge to hold together. It dissipates, forming strange shapes. But red sprites aren't the only strange sights above the thunderclouds. A blue jet, lightning from a cloud that goes up. Blazing out of the top of a thundercloud, blue jets shoot upward in narrow cones. In 2/5 of a second, a blue jet can stretch 10 miles into the sky. Impressive, but not compared to a gigantic jet.
A gigantic jet is a blue jet on steroids. They're rare, occurring in very tall thunderstorms that are very strong. A gigantic jet can go all the way from the top of a cloud to the base of the ionosphere, which is 60, 70 miles up.
Big as they are, jets and sprites are small compared to elves. Elves are triggered when an especially powerful burst of lightning creates an electromagnetic pulse that rockets up more than 60 miles, causing gases to glow at the very edge of space. Elves move at almost the speed of light, ballooning out from nothing to a disk 300 miles across in 1,000th of a second. They weren't discovered until 1990, after researchers examined films of thunderstorms taken from the space shuttle. Elves, sprites, and jets have shown that Earth's skies are far stranger than scientists once imagined. As the thunderstorms fade and the night deepens, another strange vision appears in the skies. Believe it or not, this city on the horizon isn't really there. In our 24-hour tour of Earth's strange skies, the planet has turned from late afternoon to the middle of the night. Half the world is in darkness. And where the night is warm and clear, conditions are right for one of the strangest skies of all. May 11th, 2012. On most nights, when the people of Grand Haven, Michigan look west, they just see the waters of Lake Michigan and the stars in the sky. But on this evening, there's an eerie sight. The lights, not of stars, but of a city, floating in the night. It's a real city, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But Milwaukee is 80 miles away, beyond the curvature of the Earth. Grand Haven and Milwaukee can never see each other. Or can they?
Standing on a lake shore, or maybe on an ocean beach looking out to sea, it's natural to wonder how far you can see. Typically, it may be only a few miles. There, your vision is stopped by the curvature of the Earth. You can't see over the horizon, but on a few days, when the conditions are just right, you can see the impossible.
To make a city float in the sky, you need light and layers of air with different temperatures. It's called a superior mirage. Superior because the image comes from above.
In a superior mirage, the Earth's atmosphere bends that light and into our sight line, so you can sort of see things that have already set beyond the horizon.
Well, this was spring. The sun had been heating up the air, but the cold water of Lake Michigan was cooling the air right above the water. So you had a temperature inversion, which meant that as the light left Milwaukee and passed upwards, as it encountered this boundary, it refracted back downwards to the people in Grand Rapids. And so standing there along the lake, you could look out and see the lights of this distant city that you'd never been able to see before.
What actually happens normally with light is that it travels in a straight line through the atmosphere. And so this laser beam goes straight from here to our screen over there and makes a little dot. But when there's a variation in the temperature of the air, the light can bend in different ways. So when I move the dry ice in front of the beam will actually bend toward the colder part of the air, so it'll bend downward. And so our spot on the screen will move down compared to how it was without the ice. And so light moving across the surface of the Earth toward the colder air, and so it makes faraway cities beyond the horizon actually appear visible.
A century before, and 3,000 miles to the north, there was another startling sight on the horizon. Axel Heiberg Island, the Arctic, June 1906. Here, where the days and nights can be 6 months long, explorer Robert E. Peary sees a vast land of snow-capped mountains and valleys in the distance. In 1913, another expedition is sent to map the new land. Following Peary's directions, they see the mountains and valleys, but the Inuit guides say it's all nothing but mist.
The Inuit, they knew these lands didn't exist because, well, they'd been there.
Ignoring the Inuit, the Americans press on. But over the days, the land shifts and changes its form and size.
These explorers went in search of land there over the horizon, land that simply doesn't exist.
It was either glaciers or icebergs or something that were visually lifted relative to the expedition.
Even today, the Arctic is full of imaginary landscapes that look real. But they're an extreme version of a superior mirage called a Fata Morgana.
In the Arctic or the Antarctic, you have ice along the ground, which keeps the ground level air very cold. Above it, especially in summer where the sun never sets, the air above can be quite warm, and so you get a temperature inversion. Because those conditions stay constant like that, people can go back year after year, decade after decade, and see those similar, strange, mysterious lands that really do not exist at all.
You don't have to go to the ends of the Earth to see a Fata Morgana. But where the temperature constantly changes, the mirage only lasts a short time.
First time I ever saw a Fata Morgana was sitting on the beach in Southern California looking out into Catalina Island. And one day I looked over And where before there'd always been this nice little gently sloping island, on this one occasion were these huge cliffs, and as if the island itself had suddenly transformed into something different.
I've observed mirages where it looks like there's distant mountains that just don't even exist.
A Fata Morgana, or a superior mirage, is a sight no one can ever forget. But there are even more amazing sights up north, where the black of night is banished by some of the strangest skies anywhere on the planet, thanks to winds from outer space and power from the center of the Earth. Our 24-hour tour of Earth's strange skies has reached midnight. And in the frozen north, the skies are alive.
I was in Alaska toward the end of the summer, and I just saw wisps of green, and I thought, oh, wow, what's that yellowish green? And then I realized, wait a minute, That's the aurora.
Seen from space, it looks like a crown of energy around the top of the planet. From the ice floes and fjords, it looks like a dazzling curtain of light.
Growing up in Alaska, standing at the bus stop in winter, I'd be there 3 hours before the sun would rise. But on certain mornings, you'd get the aurora. And it was like seeing this dancing light show across the sky. And there, it'd go from white to green to red.
They're called the Northern Lights, but they're seen at the South Pole too.
If you were to look down at the planet as a whole, you'd see the light concentrated at the North and South Poles in rings of light.
Even the Northern Lights can stray south. February 1872. The aurora lights spread down the sky as far as Cuba, and thousands take it as a sign of the end of the world. What power creates such a phenomenon? It turns out that the aurora's beauty begins with a stream of deadly energy, charged particles from the sun called the solar wind.
The solar wind is actually the sun's atmosphere that is constantly burning off and exploding out into space. And that blows at us as a constant solar wind.
Streaming across space at nearly 1 million miles an hour, the deadly radiation would render Earth as lifeless as the moon. But it doesn't. Thanks to a planetary defense system that begins thousands of miles underground. In the center of the Earth is a solid iron core the size of the moon, surrounded by an outer core of molten metal the size of Mars. As the liquid core spins, it creates a magnetic field that extends through the Earth and tens of thousands of miles out into space. It is a shield against the sun's attack.
The magnetic field is a great force field for our planet.
But the power of the wind distorts the shield.
The solar wind deforms the Earth's magnetic field because it's a wind that's blowing from one side relative to the Earth's field. And if the wind is blowing on one side, it's going to actually push one side and it's going to elongate the other side out like a comet tail.
Some of the charged particles of the solar wind collect in the stretched out tail. Like a slingshot, the energy builds up in the tail until it has to be released.
Solar wind particles get deflected perpendicular to how the field is projecting out from the Earth. So that pushes them to either the North or the South Pole.
I think of magnetic fields kind of like lanes on the highway. When you're in a car and you're going to get off the exit ramp, you have to go where the ramp goes. You can't just go anywhere you want. So charged particles get sent to the poles. When they reach the poles, though, most of them bounce back and go to the other pole and oscillate between the North Pole and the South Pole, back and forth, many, many times a second.
Sometimes particles don't get back on the highway. Like a traffic accident off the exit ramp, they collide with gas atoms and molecules, and the energy lights up the polar sky. The color depends on what gets hit.
Oxygen typically gives off a brilliant green color. Nitrogen gives off a red color.
The process behind the aurora is visible in any city on Earth, in neon signs.
You can actually look at neon lights as kind of like aurora in a bottle. You have this gas that has electricity flowing through it, essentially electrons that are flowing, and when they actually impact any of these ions, it excites these ions into a higher energy state, and that gives off light. And the same exact process is occurring up in the upper atmosphere.
The power that creates the aurora lights up the poles. But auroras are also seen in places you'd never expect. 24-hour journey through the strange skies of Earth passes midnight and heads for dawn. As the battle between the planet's protective magnetic field and the energy of the solar wind lights up the poles. But this battle also happens on other planets throughout the solar system. That's because if a planet has a magnetic field, like Jupiter, Saturn, or Neptune, it has auroras.
Very few people realize that there are also moons that have aurora as well. For instance, one of the moons of Jupiter is Ganymede, and Ganymede has its own intrinsic magnetic field, and it has aurora happening all the time.
More than anywhere else, though, auroras are a feast for the eyes on Earth. Yet while the northern lights may inspire awe, they usually don't shock or strike terror. But as the planet turns to the sun and night gives way to day, many Midwesterners are shocked when they wake with the dawn and see 3 suns rising in the east.
Imagine you're walking along, and there on your horizon, as the sun is rising up, suddenly there are 3 suns? What would you make of that?
It's like something out of a science fiction movie, but it's real. And what's even stranger is that multiple suns have appeared throughout history.
When ancient times, the heavens were the realm of the gods. Seeing 3 suns simultaneously, well, if you were about to engage in a battle, it could be an omen of doom.
Near this English field in 1461, 2 rival armies are terrified by the sudden appearance of 3 suns in the sky, until one commander turns the omen to his advantage.
The commander convinced his troops that these 3 suns were the symbol for his 3 sons, and so this was the sign that they would be victorious.
Inspired, his soldiers win the day, and the commander is crowned King Edward IV. But in ancient, medieval, or modern times, the question remains, what are these mock suns?
It's only in the last few hundred years that we've come to some understanding of them.
They are called sun dogs. And while they sometimes look like extra suns, they can also take on the form of an eye in the sky, or a halo. Sundogs and halos share a secret with lightning. Ice. But not ice crystals and thunderclouds. These crystals are found in cirrus clouds, and they're called diamond dust.
Where I grew up in Alaska, you could have the air itself, not just clouds, but the air itself filled with these tiny little crystals, and it's like the sky itself is filled with the dust of diamonds.
The secret of diamond dust is the way it's formed by water molecules made up of 1 oxygen and 2 hydrogen atoms. The 2 hydrogens link to the oxygen in a V shape. Then the V's form hexagons, flat, 6-sided shapes, like snowflakes. As light passes through these crystals, it's bent or refracted.
Refraction is the bending of light as it passes from one medium through an interface into another. When I put the pencil in, light will be coming directly to you from some of the pencil, and from the rest of it underwater, it'll have to bend as it comes out of the water. That will give you the appearance of the pencil being slightly displaced.
But in the sky, sunlight and diamond dust aren't enough to make a sundog. It also takes wind and gravity.
Imagine leaves falling from a tree. High pressure on one side of the leaf will push it up, creating a vacuum on the other side that pulls it. Eventually, that'll happen on both sides, and the leaves fall flat. Same with the crystals.
Wind and gravity stack the crystals like plates.
They're flat like this. And sunlight enters one edge, one side of this hexagonal plate, goes through it, and comes out two sides later. By doing so, it gets bent, but also spread out a little bit.
When sunlight refracts through these ice crystals at about 22 degrees, you can get mock suns on either side, or sundogs.
But air currents sometimes make leaves and ice crystals fall with one edge tilted down. When this happens, the crystals align at a different angle. And instead of mock suns, the refracted light creates towers called sun pillars.
Sun pillars are visible directly above or beneath the sun when it's low towards the horizon. Imagine a bunch of tiny mirrors above the sun, each reflecting the sun's light, and you get this pillar of light above and beneath the sun.
But is Earth the only planet where these strange phenomena can be witnessed?
The Earth is not alone in having an atmosphere. We are not the only planet with gases above us. Go to Mars.
Although Mars has an atmosphere that's only 1/100th as thick as Earth's, the red planet might have sundogs, formed by Martian ice crystals made up of both water and carbon dioxide. Back on Earth, the planet has kept turning, and several hours after the triple sunrise in the Midwest, in the Pacific Northwest, the sky blazes with another mystery. Light from space bent into forms that seem to defy belief. Our 24-hour tour of Earth's strange skies has reached mid-afternoon. And in a cloud, it looks like the spectrum has burst into flame. People call it a fire rainbow. But it's not a rainbow. And its fire is frozen. Its flames are made of ice. The same flat, six-sided crystals in cirrus clouds that generate sundogs make fire rainbows. But why do they look so different? Because the light from the sun is passing through the crystals at different angles.
There are similar processes that go into it as a rainbow, but it's not a rainbow because it's ice crystals and not raindrops.
With a real rainbow, the multicolored arch seen after a storm, the secret isn't ice. It's liquid water. Most people realize a rainbow represents all the colors of the spectrum, with rain acting as a prism. A process that starts 93 million miles away.
So now imagine you're riding a light wave from the sun that comes into our atmosphere, and it hits this shower of rain, spherical water droplets.
The light that goes into the sphere bends and breaks into different colors. But the colors can't make a clean getaway through the raindrop. They bounce off the back.
So there are some angles where light passes through, and there are some angles where light reflects. And in rainbows, we're seeing a combination of both.
Each color shoots out of the raindrop at its own specific angle. And out of millions of raindrops, only one color from each drop will line up perfectly with a pair of human eyes.
What we see as a beautiful rainbow is the end result of a long journey that light has made from the sun to our atmosphere, through those water droplets, and then to our eyes.
And no two people ever see the same rainbow.
If a group of friends spread ourselves out along the lakeshore, each one of us is going to begin to see a slightly different rainbow coming up and going down in a slightly different place.
Everybody still sees the same pattern of colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, the Roy G. Biv learned by school children. But different conditions can bend the familiar into the truly strange. In rare instances, the light inside a water droplet is reflected twice, creating a second rainbow on the outside. In this double rainbow, the colors are reversed, like a mirror image.
You'll see a second rainbow centered on the first one, but now fainter because it had to go through a second reflection, and those colors, instead of red on the outside, will now have red on the inside due to that one additional reflection that the other light did not go through.
Sometimes they can be seen from a very different angle, from above.
If you've ever been in an airplane and you've looked out the window down on the clouds below, right at the shadow of the airplane, sometimes you can see a faint rainbow around it.
This colorful circle is called a glory.
A glory is an interesting phenomenon that I've photographed, and it occupies a small space of sky. And you'll see it when the sun is above you, looking down onto cloud droplets.
But there are other strange rainbows as the day comes to a close. Earth's atmosphere colors the sky by breaking up and scattering light waves. The air mostly scatters blue light, so the sky is blue for most of the day. But as the planet turns, the light waves travel longer paths through the lower atmosphere. Short wavelengths, like violet and blue, are scattered more, leaving the remaining light at sunset richer in yellow, orange, and red. That's why, very rarely, there can be a red streak across the sky.
the light is low enough and all the shorter wavelength light has been absorbed or scattered, you're going to have this overwhelmingly crimson, dark red, blood red rainbow. And I've seen one in the Yukon. It was one of the most spectacular sights I'd ever seen. I looked over in a valley and there was a red rainbow. In fact, it was a double rainbow. And it was very intense light, beautiful.
The sunset isn't the end of rainbows. Sometimes a moonbow might appear.
A rainbow with light that comes not directly from the sun, but reflected off the moon. And a moonbow will appear as white to the naked eye because it doesn't have the intensity for us to see the colors in it. But if you have a camera that's sensitive enough, you will indeed see that it's a regular rainbow.
The moonbow is a creature of the night. But in the final moments of daylight, there's a final gift from the sun that some people spend all their lives looking for and never find. After 12 hours of light and amazing sights from a triple sunrise to a scarlet rainbow, half the world watches a familiar sight, the sun sinking into the west in a symphony of yellows, oranges, and reds. But in rare instances, just before the sun vanishes, another color breaks into view, a flash of green.
When that occurs, the viewer may see very briefly for less than a second to maybe 1.5 seconds long what appears to be very brilliant green, a very pure green light.
Blink and you might miss it. The green flash is so mysterious, so elusive, that skywatchers can spend years watching for it and never seeing it.
I myself have spent my entire life looking for one. First time it was from the deck of a ship crossing from Spain to Barbados. I happened to look off towards the west, and just as the last moment of the sun disappeared below the horizon, I saw it turn to green. I yelled, tried to point it out to people, but by the time I could call anyone, it had ended.
But while some people insist they've seen the green flash, others insist that it's nothing but a myth. To follow all of your favorite shows on the Weather Channel, go to facebook.com/Weather Channel Originals. we continue our journey through the strange skies of a single day on Earth to find a flash of green that some say isn't there.
I think a lot of people feel that the green flash is just a myth because some people see it and some people don't.
It just sounds so outlandish to them that the sun, which is normally red at the horizon, should suddenly appear green. They absolutely reject the idea and can't believe that that's possible. From the very moment I read about green flashes, I thought, wow, what a neat phenomenon. I've got to go see this stuff. And I looked for it for years and years.
The secret of the green flash begins with refraction, the way the atmosphere separates light into different wavelengths or colors.
When the sun is setting, it's actually a spectrum of colors. And the red is lowest, the orange is next higher up, followed by yellow, green, blue, and violet.
As the sun goes down, the colors at the top of the spectrum, the blues and violets, are scattered and absorbed by the molecules and particles in the atmosphere. They disappear. Then, as the sun drops below the horizon, the bottom colors, the yellows, oranges, and reds, disappear too. But when the top and bottom of the spectrum vanish, there's still the color in the middle.
Little lingering bit of green as the last part of the sun sets.
But the green flash can be blocked from view if there's too much dust or other material in the air.
To see a green flash, ideally you need a very clear sunset. No pretty pink stuff.
The best time to see the green flash is when you have a completely flat horizon with no clouds at all. In other words, a boring sunset. So when you have that incredibly flat horizon where the air is still, that's the time to look.
But with the right sunset and the right timing, the green flash turns out to be no myth, but a reality. Although the green flash usually lasts only a second or two, a change in altitude or angle can sometimes result in seeing an additional flash. Sometimes a quick climb up a hill can be rewarded with another flash of green.
Or even stand up from a sitting position. So you have a second or two to stand up and catch the flash again.
At extreme angles, there can be more extreme views.
On the summit of Mauna Kea in Hawaii, I photographed a triple green flash. Just kept shooting. So it's just a progression as the sun is setting relative to me at that time, going through just the right atmospheric conditions to produce not one, not two, but 3 green flashes.
But sometimes, eager photographers think they've captured a green flash, but find it's eluded them. The secret of the disappearing flash is that staring at the setting sun can create a false green light. Look at this red dot. Stare at it for a count of 20. As you stare at the dot, part of your eye that senses red is getting overloaded. Now, look at a blank surface, and you'll see a blue-green after image, if you're not colorblind. In the same way, staring too hard at a setting sun can create a false green image, when the sunset is really still yellow.
At sunset, after images can affect the color that you see. And if you snap the shutter as soon as it looks green, you tend to get a yellow flash on film. So I've learned how long to wait after I see the green before I trip the shutter.
On only 3 times in all of my life of looking at the setting sun have I ever seen the green flash, and never when I had a camera.
Unlike other phenomena like the aurora or sundogs, the green flash may be something confined to the strange skies of Earth.
There might be green flashes on other planets, but probably not in our solar system.
A planet with a thinner atmosphere, like Mars, has less light refraction and less colorful sunsets. But if the atmosphere is too thick, as on Jupiter, the clouds would block the rays of the green flash. But on Earth, for as long as there are sunsets, some people will continue to seek the green flash on the horizon.
They're so beautiful. They're gorgeous things to look at. The color that you see in a green flash is so much purer than the color you see in a rainbow, for example. When I was photographing green flashes regularly, I would come back from a sunset, and every time I went through a green traffic light, I would think, gosh, that looks pale and feeble compared to what I just saw when the sun went down.
The sky that stretches from our feet to the edge of space shows wonders to those who look.
Ever since the dawn of humankind, people have looked up at the sky and seen light, auroras, and rainbows, and solar halos, and wondered about what is it that produces these things.
The sky is filled with all sorts of strange phenomenon. If you simply take the time to look up, you can see an entire universe of new phenomenon.
We have uncovered a remarkable planet, a world of extreme weather, alien landscapes, and bizarre phenomena. It's the most complex system we know of in the universe. That planet is Earth, and we are only beginning to unlock its secrets. They may have delivered life to Earth, but now have the power to destroy it. They've injured people, flattened forests, and once killed most living things on the planet.
This is far more than all of the world's arsenal of nuclear weapons put in one place at one time.
And their wrath is far from over. Some of the cosmic intruders aren't even extraterrestrial. There's over 1,000 tons of man-made space junk that could spell doom to a city.
It's not a question of if, it's a question of when we get hit.
The menacing objects that fall from space. Mount Lemmon Observatory, Tucson, Arizona, December 31st, 2013, 11:18 p.m. Astronomers have no idea that the new year would begin with a literal bang. A suspicious object is observed, streaking across the equatorial constellation of Orion. The space intruder is only 300,000 miles away and screaming towards Earth.
It was briefly observed for only about 70 minutes. 7 measurements were obtained, which is the bare minimum, really, to get a decent orbit solution.
The sparse information is sent to a member of a CSI-like team of asteroid hunters at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California.
All we know is what the telescopes can see, which is very little information about how far away it is along the line of sight and how it's moving towards us or away from us. So we statistically explored the range of possible orbits where this could be.
Astronomers determine it's an asteroid moving at 7.5 miles per second. They estimate it will crash land somewhere on Earth. But the question is, where and when?
It's going to hit the Earth somewhere on this long strip across the Africa, Atlantic, and South America. I found that the range of possible impact times was several hours long, possibly already in the past, or possibly sometime in the next several hours.
Almost 24 hours pass and still no sign of the asteroid. So scientists turn to a clandestine piece of technology. A global network of infrasound monitoring stations used by the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization.
The array of infrasound detectors that we have spread around the planet are essentially just very sensitive microphones for measuring very low frequency sounds that are produced by explosive events in the atmosphere. These were put up obviously for detecting the detonation of nuclear explosives, so we can keep an eye on our neighbors, so to speak. But also asteroid impacts as well.
The infrasound specialists immediately went to their data, and I was contacted by some of these specialists and asked what I knew and where I thought it had hit, and they told me where they thought the event had occurred, and I put them all together and they matched perfectly.
The rogue space rock triggers weak acoustic detections at 3 infrasound stations. Scientists pinpoint where the 3 infrasound waves intersect, and the secret is revealed. On January 1st, 2014, at 11:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, an asteroid, the size of a small car, smacked into the Earth's atmosphere and exploded above the Atlantic Ocean, 1,900 miles east of Caracas, Venezuela.
The intersection occurred where I predicted it should have landed, and so we were all confident that this was a consistent detection.
There's no loss of life on the planet because the energy and debris from the impact disperses over the ocean. But planet Earth may not be so lucky the next time. The infrasound detectors expose another shocking secret. Between 2000 and 2013, there were 26 explosions on Earth due to asteroid impacts, up to 65 feet in diameter, and with a destructive force of 1 to 600,000 tons of TNT. Most of the recent impacts occurred over oceans, since 71% of the planet's surface is covered with water. But that's not to say they couldn't happen over a populated city in the future.
We don't necessarily always see these objects telescopically, and this infrasound data are the perfect gap filler for us and giving us information on the small end of the asteroid impactor population. And when you look at those data, it turns out that we're being hit by these small things a lot more often than we maybe originally thought.
Asteroids are small bodies made up of mostly rock and metal that hold secrets to the Earth's past. Approximately 4.5 billion years ago, the planet's solar system looked like a cosmic shooting gallery as celestial rocks collided and coalesced to form planets. The billions upon billions of rocks that didn't get pulled in to form planets became wayward debris called asteroids.
While most of the cloud of gas and dust that collapsed to form our solar system went into making the sun and the planets, there was a little bit left over that didn't get swept up. And this is what is thought to have formed the asteroids.
Asteroids, as well as their icier cousins, the comets, may have supplied Earth with water. They may have even given life a shuttle ride to the planet.
Impacts on the early Earth may have been what brought life to the planet. They may have brought the volatiles needed, such as water. They may have delivered the precursor biological ingredients that are needed to create life. We have identified these in multiple meteorites.
It's kind of ironic that the very process that gave rise to the birth of the Earth and even may have brought the kinds of ingredients that we need for life to exist on Earth is the same process that could spell our doom.
Comets reside mostly in the frigid outer reaches of the solar system. On their orbital journeys around the sun, few of these fragile, icy bodies make their way through near-Earth space. But asteroids are a different story. Most now orbit in the asteroid belt located between the planets Mars and Jupiter. However, there are literally hundreds of millions of objects whose orbital path can come dangerously close to Earth. They're called near-Earth objects, or NEOs. A slight gravitational deviation in orbit when passing by a large planet like Jupiter can send them like a slingshot towards Earth. Large asteroids can strike the ground with colossal energy. Smaller ones rarely make it that far. They typically vaporize when hitting the planet's dense atmosphere. These types of impacts are called airbursts, and some can pack the energy of multiple nuclear bombs.
When a smaller object explodes in Earth's atmosphere, it hits the atmosphere with such a great speed, 40,000 miles an hour or so, that it feels like a brick wall, and so it can indeed explode. That produces a shock wave that won't make a crater, but it makes widespread damage nonetheless.
In 2013, Earth experiences just how destructive a real cosmic airburst can be to a modern city and human life. Billions upon billions of asteroids, the wayward debris from the creation of Earth's solar system, now orbit in a belt between Jupiter and Mars. But Earth is still far from safe from their wrath. Occasionally, they're gravitationally nudged out of their orbital path and can head on a collision course with the planet. And these cosmic rocks don't even need to touch the ground to ignite a catastrophe. They can explode in the Earth's atmosphere as an airburst.
To demonstrate the power and energy of an airburst, I'm going to do a simple homemade experiment. It's called an air cannon. Basically, it's just a plastic garbage can with a hole at one end and a diaphragm made of plastic at the other end. To see the air more clearly, let's fill the garbage can with smoke. Now, if I hit the diaphragm, it'll push a pulse of air through this hole toward this toy city wall that we've constructed. And if I aim it correctly, it should knock it down. There we go. Ooh, there we go. Look at that. One by one, the pillars of the wall are coming down. Look at that. That city, that toy city is going down. And it's just because of pulses of air. Now imagine if this were a real asteroid pummeling towards Earth at 40 or 50,000 miles an hour, sending a supersonic shock wave toward a city. That would cause walls and roofs to crumble. It would shatter windows. It would cause a lot of destruction in a city.
Earth experienced what a real meteor air blast can do to a modern city. February 15th, 2013, Chelyabinsk, Russia. Residents catch sight of a blinding fireball roaring across the sky at supersonic speeds.
Chelyabinsk came at us from the direction of the sun in the daylight, and so the ground-based optical telescopes couldn't see it.
That was a complete shock to everyone. No one saw it coming. It hadn't been observed. That meteor was huge.
The 10 asteroid, the length of a school bus, strikes the Earth's atmosphere, producing an explosive glow 30 times brighter than the sun.
That huge mass of compressed air in front of the asteroid continued on even after the asteroid itself exploded. And it was basically the shock wave that impacted the ground about 2 minutes and 23 seconds later.
The shock wave packs the energy of nearly 500,000 tons of TNT. It damages thousands of buildings and injures more than 1,500 people.
People standing near the windows looking up to see what had just happened in the sky. Those windows were shattered and people were cut from the flying glass.
Some people were knocked to the floor. The bright light of the flash actually led to temporary blindness in people's eyes. So it was a very destructive thing.
The air blast was detected by 17 infrasound stations, the largest sound waves ever recorded by the watchdog system of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization.
The Chelyabinsk event is a perfect demonstration of the utility of this infrasound array in not only pinpointing exactly where the object came in, telling us the exact energy. It was heard by dozens of the microphones in this particular array, and in particular, we could actually hear the sound from that event travel around the world 2 or 3 times.
The Chelyabinsk event was the largest known cosmic impact to affect humans. But it isn't the first time Russia was struck by an asteroid in modern times. June 30th, 1908, Siberia, Russia. A space rock, the width of a football field, explodes with nuclear-like intensity above the Tunguska forest. It sends a shock wave of searing heat and energy, barreling across the remote countryside. It levels more than 80 million trees for over 800 square miles. Fortunately, no one is killed or injured because the impact occurs over a remote area.
Tunguska was probably about 4 or 5 or 6 times more energetic than Chelyabinsk. If Tunguska had occurred today where Chelyabinsk occurred, I guarantee you that there would have been fatalities, so the damage would have been very much more significant.
No pieces of the Tunguska meteorite have ever been found. However, over 100 chunks of the Chelyabinsk meteorite are recovered, including a 1/2 ton, 60-foot wide boulder that blasted through a frozen lake.
It crashed through the ice and was recovered from the bottom of a lake. That meteorite is about 1,200 pounds, and it was so heavy that when they dragged it up to the shore and tried to weigh it, it actually broke the scale and fell into 3 parts.
Lab analysis determines it's a stony chondrite, a rubbly, porous asteroid with a long, violent history.
When pieces of the Chelyabinsk meteorite were recovered, scientists immediately noticed it was riddled with cracks in all directions, and that, no doubt, was part of why it broke up into so many boulders. Apparently, at some point in its past, it suffered an impact with another larger body.
The highly fractured pieces of the meteorite yield a startling secret. The space rock may not have traveled alone when it headed towards Earth. Asteroids continue to pose a threat to planet Earth, and perhaps in the not-so-distant future. The cosmic catastrophe in Chelyabinsk, Russia, in 2013 was a wake-up call for humans. Scientists now wonder if the meteorite came from a family of asteroids, and if so, it could have cosmic siblings with Earth in their crosshairs.
Collisional families of asteroids are formed through a collision. A large asteroid gets smacked by something, another asteroid, and it breaks it into several pieces, which then all are sharing the same general orbital characteristics as the parent body. So instead of having one asteroid, you've got dozens.
If Chelyabinsk really is part of a collisional family, that means that there are other asteroids, most likely going to be on the same orbit. So this kind of thing could happen again.
How can scientists determine whether the Chelyabinsk meteorite came from a clan of asteroids?
Pull! Pull! We're here at a gun range to illustrate the concept of the formation of an asteroid family. This little orange clay pigeon is going to be our stand-in for our main belt asteroid, and we're going to shoot it with our projectile, which is this shot from this 20-gauge shotgun. Pull! And there goes our pigeon flying. Good, so that's working great. We'll load our shotgun here. Okay. We're ready. Pull! Oh, excellent. Came right apart. Let's go check out those results. Here's the fragments we just collected out there. Let's see if we can reassemble our asteroid family. And indeed, some of these pieces actually do fit back together. I can see that they're originated from this original orange pigeon. So if we could somehow go out there in space and scoop all the asteroids of a family back together, we'd be able to see that they were the same color, the same composition of the original parent asteroid.
Was the Chelyabinsk meteorite a member of a family of asteroids? Scientists attempt to piece together the genealogy of the cosmic rock by retracing its flight path from space. They want to find out the location of any cosmic relatives that could be headed for our planet.
One of the things that is different about the Chelyabinsk meteor is that we got a lot of data on it. There were a lot of dash cams and security cams and people with their own video cameras, and so there were so many observations that were all compiled and analyzed and enabled scientists to get very exact information about the nature of the breakup of the meteor while it was passing through the atmosphere.
Scientists run simulations of billions of orbits of known near-Earth objects. To their surprise, they find 20 rocks with similar orbital paths and zero in on one peculiar asteroid named 1999 NC43 that experienced a cosmic collision over 1.2 million years ago.
When you extrapolate Chelyabinsk path backwards, you find an elliptical orbit that's comparable to this other object, 1999 NC43. That's not proof that they're the same object, but it's suggestive.
Whether they travel with a family or fly solo, not all asteroid impacts spell doom. Some may actually preserve life. From space, Earth looks like a sapphire sphere of vast oceans dotted with land masses. But upon closer inspection, the planet bears the battle scars of its tumultuous past. At least 184 impact craters are still visible on the surface. These cosmic basins reveal secrets about what asteroids can do to a planet.
The Earth doesn't have very many high-energy events that could really wipe out the human race. Impacts are one of them. We have seen it in the past, major extinctions of major species.
Many ancient impacts triggered ecological mayhem, killing off plants and animals on regional to global scales. 66 million years ago, an asteroid the size of Mount Everest impacted the Yucatan Peninsula with the energy of a 100 million megaton bomb.
This was an enormous event. This is not a Chelyabinsk or a Tunguska. This is the equivalent of 100 million megatons of explosive energy. This is far more than all of the world's arsenal of nuclear weapons put in one place at one time.
The cosmic impact creates a 100-mile wide crater at the bottom of the ocean and churns up molten dust and debris that drifts across the globe. It blocks sunlight for years, altering weather and climate that affects almost every species of life.
This event was horrendous enough to literally lay waste to the biological world. The dinosaurs and probably 3/4 of all the other plants and animal species on the planet went extinct.
The dino-killing impact was devastating to ancient species on Earth. However, new simulations of asteroid impacts have discovered that some cosmic catastrophes actually preserved ancient life. The rugged coastline near Buenos Aires, Argentina, holds an ancient secret. 7 separate impacts occurred in the region over a period between 6,000 and 9 million years ago. When scaling steep cliffs for more clues, scientists make an amazing discovery. The layers of sediment dating back to these impacts are teeming with glass that contains mysterious living matter.
Not in our wildest dream did we expect to find material trapped inside. But we saw material that looked like they were stretch marks, scratches. We couldn't figure out what these things were.
Scientists discovered the impact glass contains exquisitely preserved leaf fragments from plants that once thrived in the region millions of years ago. It's very similar to modern pampas grass, a species common to that region.
So here's pampas grass. It's found all through Argentina. A several asteroid hit in Argentina and fused all the soils, all the materials, created craters and spread impact glass everywhere. But embedded within some of the impact glasses was pieces of the pampas grass.
Scientists suspect that when an object from space slams into the ground at supersonic speeds, it melts tons of rock and soil. The scorched material gets thrown out of the crater, and it often traps living matter, some of which forms inside glass as it cools.
The glass was hot around the edges, but was not hot in the inside. This is kind of like putting a French fry in the deep fry. It gets fries on the outside, but it's still okay on the inside, depending on how long you leave it. So I think we've had our impact glass.
Scientists are now attempting to understand how an explosive impact can actually preserve life inside pieces of impact material. At the vertical gun range in NASA's Ames Research Center, a massive 30 caliber light gas gun will shoot a bead-sized projectile at about 3 miles per second into a bed of grass and sand material inside a vacuum chamber.
Okay, this is the impact chamber. We want to find out whether or not we can take that same pampas grass we find there and actually trap it up inside the impact glass. We have to put down material inside the target and then put in the grass from Argentina mixed in with that target. This little projectile is intended to simulate a large projectile, that is an asteroid, coming through the Earth's atmosphere. This is going to come from that port and then slam right into the target. If all goes well, we'll see a lot of hot stuff. Okay, let's lock and load.
High-speed cameras will document the experimental impact that will generate furnace-like temperatures up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside the control room, science is mixed with a bit of superstition.
Because we're professionals, we keep everything crossed. Sweet. I think we got stuff. Let's see. Oh, look at that. Oh, man. There's a vapor cloud moving uprange right here. Yeah, that's basically the temperature of what we see on the sun. I'm hoping this is a clump of grass embedded inside the glass. Okay, this is what we're going after. Let's see what we can find. Oh, man. Look at all this stuff. My fingers are crossed. And if all goes well, we'll be able to find pieces of grass trapped inside. Okay, now I want to look inside the crater. That's promising that there's something in there. I think now is the time to see what we have. Go to the microscope. You see this distorted, bubbly glass. You can see how hot it was because it looks like taffy. It was pulled out and then frozen. Oh, here's the interesting piece. Look at that, it's green. Are you kidding me? That is a piece of the leaf that still has the chlorophyll in it, completely preserved, but it's been turned into glass. That's what we find in Argentina. Isn't that cool? So now we have the molten material, and here's that remnants of the grass trapped around it.
The experiment demonstrated how a powerful asteroid impact could actually preserve life. Now scientists are wondering if the impact glass in Argentina could shed clues about the weather on the day an asteroid hit Earth in its ancient past.
If we study these grasses, we might be able to tell whether or not they're more conducive to a more tropical environment or more conducive to a very dry environment. So maybe we'll be able to understand what the past climate was like in Argentina and the Southern Hemisphere.
The pieces of impact glass are tiny time capsules that could also hold secrets.
Environment or more conducive to a very dry environment. So maybe we'll be able to understand what the past climate was like in Argentina.
Are now frozen in time.
Could we find something else inside the impact glass other than old grass? We actually might find relic evidence for life. And we're talking maybe little pieces trapped inside. We're not going to find dead bodies, but we might find something else interesting, and that's why we need to keep on looking.
Since the formation of its solar system, billions upon billions of objects have fallen onto Earth, affecting the future of life on the planet. And they're not all extraterrestrial. Some It's a scene from a blockbuster movie. Satellite debris ignites a collisional catastrophe, destroying spacecraft and killing astronauts. The scenario is dramatic and far from fiction. Asteroids are no longer the only cosmic objects to threaten life on Earth. Since the beginning of the space age in the late 1950s, rockets have carried thousands of spaceships and satellites into orbit. Now, defunct rocket stages, fuel tanks, and millions of nuts and bolts litter the Earth's atmosphere like a huge... They pose a threat to over 1,000 satellites and the International Space Station. Some will eventually fall back to Earth and endanger human life.
Space debris is any man-made item that's in space, say orbiting the Earth, that is not functional, which means it could be a dead satellite or something that kind of drifts away from the space station.
The U.S. Space Surveillance Network has been tracking over 22,000 pieces of debris larger than 4 inches. Most reside in low Earth orbit, approximately 600 miles above the planet's surface. In the vacuum of space, objects can stay for over 100 years because there's no air resistance. But they will eventually undergo orbital decay and lose energy because even at these altitudes, there's a very slight atmospheric drag. As a result, the Earth's gravity will eventually tug them back down into its atmosphere.
The time it takes for a piece of debris or even a satellite to come back down from space depends on its altitude, basically. The closer you get to Earth, the shorter the time it takes to come down. So basically, anything within the low Earth orbit, it will come down relatively quickly.
Space junk at altitudes below 370 miles can fall back to Earth in a few years. Most debris burns up during atmospheric re-entry and vaporizes. However, stronger pieces made of stainless steel and titanium can survive tremendous heat. Once below the dense regions of the atmosphere, they literally free fall to the ground.
At a nice altitude, like say 60,000 feet or so, they're basically falling vertically and land at a relatively low velocity, 150 miles an hour, and hit the ground. You can typically hear a shock wave or something like that as they come in.
They may look like gigantic abstract sculptures, but these are actual recovered space junk that crashed onto Earth.
What we have here is a piece of titanium rocket state. They basically just circled the Earth for 9 years and decided to come down, and it landed in Saudi Arabia and was found by the Bedouins out in the desert. This is the second stage of a vehicle that was used to put a satellite in orbit. This one's about 570 pounds. Stainless steel. Would have been a bad day for somebody to be under it. We want to really understand how this thing survived, why it survived, and try to take that into account when we start designing new vehicles.
As much as 1,400 tons of man-made material has already reached the surface of the Earth. In 1997, a hot piece of metal from a Delta II rocket fell from the skies over a populated area of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
One woman was out doing her laps on a track at very early in the morning, and this piece of stuff came down and brushed her on the shoulder. That, as far as we know, is the first time that anybody was touched by a piece of debris.
The international space community now imposes new design requirements for most objects being launched into space to ensure controlled re-entries.
We developed a little device we call a reentry breakup recorder, and this is a quarter-scale model of that. It's designed to be attached to a piece of debris that's going to be re-entering the atmosphere. It records accelerations and rates and pressures and temperatures and so forth, and then it makes a satellite phone call on the way down to transmit its data. And the objective, of course, is to bring it down into a safe area, like the South Pacific, where you don't worry about hitting someone.
So far, Most of the new re-entry technologies won't have any effect on the thousands of pieces of old debris already in space. Follow all of your favorite shows on the Weather Channel. Go to facebook.com/Weather Channel Originals.